guys, we're going on air. Restrain yourself. I call the 2,440th meeting of the Milwaukie City Council to order. This meeting is being held in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall or joining the Zoom webinar. The meeting is being broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and Comcast cable channel 30 within city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during this meeting. If you would like to address council, you may come to City Hall or participate via Zoom. If you are interested in speaking, please let staff know by filling out a yellow comment card on the table over there for those at City Hall or emailing ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov for those on Zoom. When it is time to take public comments, staff will monitor the comment cards, email inbox, and Zoom participant list and chat. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Comments may be emailed to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. We ask that all Zoom participants who intend to speak label their Zoom username to show their first and last names for the record. And in a new twist, we have our information about translation services available on the slide. So translation services are available in multiple languages. Please see the information on this slide for details. And with that, say, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The City of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya Etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. Moving on to announcements, since they're kind of in date order there, I have a couple of other ones that are actually earlier than any of those. So this Saturday, January 10th, there are two things that I know of. First, it is second Saturday of the month, and so there's a work party in Minthorn Springs where the Milwaukie Parks Foundation and the Wetlands Conservancy are the second Saturday of every month from 9:30 to noon. Come join us in helping create better habitat at that wetland in the middle of Milwaukie. We park near Planet Fitness and walk across 37th Avenue. The other thing this Saturday is the North Clackamas Watersheds Council is collecting Christmas trees to turn Christmas trees into fish habitat. And they do that at the, you can drop your tree off at North Clackamas Park at the big picnic shelter between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. And then in 2 weeks, on the 24th, there will be another work party to put those trees into the river down by Oak Rock Island. So now to the things on the slide. Join a conversation with local leaders that explores the urgent issues of housing and homelessness in our community on Wednesday, January 21st from 6 to 7:15 p.m. at Ledding Library. The panel will examine local services and solutions for those most in need and engage in meaningful dialogue about how we can work together to ensure housing stability and compassionate support for all. And thanks to Councilor Kosherbati, I think he's part of that group. The Ledding Library will hold their third annual puzzle swap on Sunday, January 25th from 12 to 1 p.m. Check the city web calendar for instructions on how to participate. And nominations are now open for the 2025 Volunteer of the Year. Nominees can be anyone who resides in Milwaukie or is a member of a nonprofit organization or business that serves the Milwaukie community. If you know someone who has gone above and beyond in 2025, please nominate them for the award by February 11th. And that application, that nomination form can be found on the city's homepage. For more information about each of these events, please visit the city's homepage at milwaukieoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555. And then I have haiku to read, and the author is here today. Jennifer Murphy. Home in Milwaukie, we raise children, each other, with kindness, strength, care. Very nice. Okay, we have, we have two community comments. Okay, so we're to that part because we don't have any special proclamations or anything today. This is part of the agenda during which council will hear community comments on city business that are not on the agenda. Before we begin, is there any follow-up from the December 16th comments, Mr. Brilio?
Thanks, Mayor. There are no comments from the December 16th meeting. You did receive two general correspondences in your packet from Mr. Holmquist about EV chargers and Mr. Bernie Stout about planning and housing zoning.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about those? Yeah.
Happy to. For those that don't know, there's an ask basically for additional chargers and for additional potential enforcement on those charging stations downtown. As of what I understand right now, council, is that we can obviously enforce on what is in our traffic regs for those parking spots, so 2-hour parking. As far as adding additional increases in those charging stations specifically, we don't have the authority or ability to. And that's one piece. There's questions there. Happy to address those. And then from the planning and housing side, from Bernie Stout, he had basically a very large question about our stance on the state legislation, our state legislature providing us lots of zoning requirements that we have to follow. And I have my own opinions. You've all shared your own opinions on what the state does and how we've had to address from HB 2001, HB 2003, and so on. So I don't have anything additional to add besides what's been shared by this council and by staff over the years.
Okay, thank you. For those in person who wish to speak, please submit a yellow comment card. I have 2 of them found on the table side of chambers. If you are on Zoom, use the raise hand reaction to alert staff that you wish to speak. And when instructed to do so, click the microphone button to unmute yourself. If you are telephoning in through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. You may also submit a comment via email to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. Before you make your comments, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because information provided during community comments may be new, this is not the time for discussion. The city manager will respond at the next meeting to comments that require follow-up. And with that, I would invite Chris Scott to please come forward. So when you sit at the microphone, yeah, perfect, you got it. It's generally people sit, but if you would rather stand, you're welcome to stand.
If you do stand, Mr. Scott, if you can make sure that you're close to the mic. Is that working? Okay. Well, what it is my question's about the 3% increase on my water bill for processing fees. Why it says it's there. And then it reads on to avoid these charges, please visit this page. And then for other alternatives, which there are other alternatives, but there's only one that I'm aware of that doesn't ding me the 3% for making a purchase with my card. And that's the direct payment to my account, which I'm not in a position where I can do. So that means I'm either got to mail in a check, which is really kind of phasing out in today's world, which, okay, that's an option. And then fortunately, I do usually come down and pay cash, but leaning towards a digital world. I just don't understand what's changed in your processing, because nothing's changed for me. I pay my bill the same, either cash or my card. Nothing's changed on my end. So there's had to been some internal change on your end to constitute this 3% for the processing fee. So what's the definition of the processing? Who's doing it, or what's doing the processing to constitute the 3% charge for? Because the way I'm receiving this is a big shove to get just going straight to my account. Because I don't have any other option other than that, or pay cash and buy my check. So I just don't understand the purpose of this 3%. It's like I'm almost being penalized if I don't comply to either pay check or cash. And I don't understand why that is when we're phasing into a digital world. And I'm being told that all currency is going to be digital at some time. So at some point in time, either have to have me be linked straight into my banking account, or I don't pay your bill, and I don't have any other options but to get my water from you guys. So I guess my question is why is it why is it a financial burden on my behalf just to make a payment to you?
Um, so as I said in our script, we, typically don't answer.
Yeah, it says they come back next week or something. I'd have an answer.
Yeah.
So that's,
And we got a letter. I mean, I also received a letter from somebody about this. And so I have shared that with this acting city manager and with our finance director. So I think they will be prepared to address that at the next meeting. I mean, I will just briefly say it was about covering the credit card fees and having not the city to
Yeah,
pay
it's
the credit card fees.
yeah, I understand it's a banking thing, and that's a whole nother issue altogether. So
But I hope we can make it as painless as possible. And so we will definitely count on the acting city manager to address
Okay,
that
thank
in
you.
2 weeks. Thank you. Lisa McCallie Sprague.
Years. I lived in the Linwood NDA area. I just came to watch today, but I decided I'd say something since there's some time. Thank you for everything you do, and I am here to just try to keep the topic of affordable housing balanced. Um, I'm concerned in our Linwood area, there's a number of projects. There's a huge one on Monroe that's in the Clackamas rural area, I believe. But there's two being developed about a block from my house on either side of Linwood Elementary School that are hoping to be developed. A 45 unit townhouse, the north of Covenant Church, and the St. Paul's Church with 28 clusters. I'm just hoping that the city can, um, take into account some of the other goals we've had, keeping parks, um, community hubs, coffee shop, for those of us neighbors who have been looking forward to those things for quite a few years. I totally get housing is needed. I'm worried about the density, 73 new units within 2 blocks on either side of 2 elementary schools. With no other services around except a 7-Eleven, a marijuana store, a bottle drop, and a gas station. So, and a pizza place. So I'm kind of feeling that neighborhood is a little depressed anyway. We were looking forward to, yeah, the community hub idea. And so just in the push for affordable housing, I just don't want to get those of us who are already here lost and some of our hopes for Milwaukie and the neighborhood. I also am hearing about the MIRL, which I believe the 45 unit townhouses is hoping to be. I'm worried about that risk to us as taxpayers. It just feels without state income tax, the property tax is an easy way to just keep putting money And my property tax is pretty high already, and I'm not looking forward to it going higher and higher. So thank you all for listening and just taking that into any account in your future decision making, and any other direction you have for me, who I should be talking to, planning department, anybody else that I can just, keep a balance and my ideas connected, I'd appreciate. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have anybody online, Mr. Stoffer?
We do not have a Zoom audience tonight.
Okay. So that's all of my public comment. Oh, are we, uh, okay. Well, if that's that, we will close, the public comment part of the evening and move to our consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes minutes of the City Council November 4th, 2025 work session, November 4th, 2025 regular session, November 13th, 2025 special session, November 18th, 2025 work session, November 18th, 2025 regular session, a resolution establishing the 2026 City Council meeting schedule, a resolution designating the 2026 newspapers of record, a resolution removing Stephen Lashbrook and appointing Philip Stos to the Public Safety Advisory Committee as the Llewellyn Neighborhood District Association rep, a resolution authorizing a contract with Pace Inc. and Emerio Design LLC for on-call surveying services, file number RFPQ 2025 046, and approval of an Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission application for 1847 Food Park, 1915 Southeast Scott Street. Does any council member wish to remove a consent agenda item? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. None heard. The consent agenda is passed unanimously. Congratulations, Philip. You didn't have to come all the way down for that, but thanks for. Well, yeah, thanks. Okay, so our main item of business tonight, the naming and memorial policies adoption. And for that, we have our equity and inclusion coordinator, Gabriela Santoyo Gutierrez, and Parks and Green Space Development Manager, Adam Moore.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, Mayor Beatty, and good evening, City Council, and Happy New Year. So Adam and I have planned tonight to provide an update and adoption of our city's naming policies. For the overview for tonight, we'll give a recap of the development process that covers the people who were involved and a cumulative timeline for us. We'll also provide a high-level overview of the naming policy and memorial and donation policy. And then for most of our time tonight, and I would add the most exciting part of tonight, is that we'll share our engagement results and how they inform those updated changes into the policies. Then we'll end with more discussion, adoption, and resolution. And of course, feel free to ask questions along the way. Okay, with that, I'm going to transition over to Adam.
Okay, so just taking a step back and talking about where we've been over the last year. We have set the purpose of this process to establish a systematic and consistent approach to naming major assets. These are assets that the city owns. There is currently a policy that applies to the city parks as we are members of NCPRD, but the city did not have its own policy, with the exception of what had been adopted back in 2000. So we felt that we needed to update our policy and really provide the city with something up to date for that. So Gabriella and I were asked by the city manager to work with a community group that was made up of representatives from the Equity Steering Committee and the Parks and Rec Board. The full board and committee did also weigh in on these policies along the way, along with some community engagement that we'll share with you. We also had review from our climate and natural resources manager, our library director, city reporter, public works director were all involved in this policy. But I really just want to give a shout out to those 4 community members who met with us at least monthly for a year, putting this together. This policy is based on what we consider to be best practices from the region. We looked at 6 different policies for different municipalities and NCPRD. And we chose to pull significantly from both NCPRD and the city of Portland's policy to put this one together.
All right. And I think here's the easier visual that tells that timeline a little bit better, but also doesn't cover all the cumulative work for months. And sometimes I would add we met twice a month. But just to recap, starting in February last year, Q1, we had early thoughtful conversations, and as Adam already shared, conducted thorough research, and that helped us early in that Q1 define our scope and definitions. Then in Q2, we pulled, and again, mainly from NCPRD and City of Portland's policy to draft our procedures and responsibilities. And we had early discussion that we needed a separate policy for donations. And that's where in Q3, we had full drafts of our naming and memorial and donation policies. And this is the phase where we then talked to ESC and CARB, and then that helped us create a revised draft that we presented to you all at our October 7th regular session update. And with that, on the October 7th, we left with additional revisions and were directed to launch that public outreach. And that brings us to this Q4 with the results of the survey using Engage Milwaukie, and also recommendations after meeting with representatives from the Grand Ronde. Before we get into that, I'm super excited. We're going to dive into like the high level overview of those policies, just recap and refresh your memories because it's been a little bit.
So tonight we're going to start with the shorter of the 2 policies. This is our memorial and donation policy. This policy is almost verbatim the same as NCPRD's, which already applies to our parks. Well, actually, no, it doesn't. Excuse that. It already applies to all of our parks. And we felt that we needed a new one to fill in the gaps and to make sure that we had a policy that represented our values. So the contributions need not be financial when considering a donation. So in-kind donations, volunteer hours can also be recognized here. This would be a lower level of decision making because we are talking about a plaque next to an amenity or on an amenity. So perhaps someone donates the money for a bench or for a tree, or maybe donates something physical, and we add a plaque to it. So the decision making would be up to the city manager or the designee. It's important to note we're not naming the bench or the tree or whatever after that person. We are just recognizing it with a plaque near that donation. This is a limited term, as is NCPRD's, designed to be a 20-year plaque. That gives us some flexibility to make sure that we're not having to track these things forever. If you talk to NCPRD staff, they'll share with you a very long spreadsheet of all the different plaques that they have in all of their parks. And so, when we asked them for feedback, they said, hey, if you're going to do this, make sure you have a time limit on it. And then the one thing that our policy does that NCPRD doesn't is we wanted to set some standards. One of the changes that we made to the policy is we increased the maximum size of the plaque. We increased that to 8 by 11. Other than that, the only change since we were here before you before was to clarify that if somebody is going to make a donation on something in the right of way, that a right of way permit would supersede this policy. So you have to get a right of way permit first, right? We have to make sure it's safe to put a bench in that right of way or a tree in that right of way, what have you, and then we can talk about adding a plaque to it. Other than that, the policy is virtually unchanged. Okay.
Then to dive into the main Milwaukie naming policy, I thought it'd also be easier to just visually tell a little bit of the steps in the process, starting with a public notification, solicitation, and preparation for public submissions that are open for 45 days. Then we start with the review and recommendation to staff, council, and then the staff review. We're preparing those materials. Then after staff review, city council review and final decision, and then communicating that decision to the public. Sounds very simple in there. As you can tell, it's 5 to 6 page document with more details. I just wanted to recap. That's a little bit of that process. And in it, I also wanted to pull out that we have 5 naming categories that include geographic and special features, indigenous or cultural, native flora and fauna, historic and outstanding individuals. And only individuals who are deceased will be considered. And this is again because the policy is mainly intended for significant donations that include up to 51% of land, 60% of capital, or a 20-year endowment. And the donor may recommend a name to the subcommittee that meets at least one of the naming categories.
So if somebody was making such a significant donation and gave you a, their recommended name, you would still go through the public notification and solicitation of other, okay, so they don't have any, I remember reading in the staff report, that people didn't want to sell the name of our parks. But but they even still have to compete with other naming ideas. Okay.
Yeah, so the policy states, and this is a good question because the policy is a little bit unclear there. It could be a little bit more explicit. And if we need to make some revisions, we can. But, the policy states that they will be allowed to suggest a name, but then that we will follow those same steps. There's no guarantee that the subcommittee would choose that name and make it a recommendation to council, and then there's no guarantee that council will take on that name. If folks are looking for a guarantee for a donation, for recognition, the memorial donation policy allows for that. And that's any donation.
And just to add the connection to there is that the goal was not to sell necessarily naming rights, as you had mentioned with the parks example. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that feedback not only comes from the 4 folks that we worked with over the past year, but the full equity steering committee, the full Parks and Rec board. And if you dive into the weeds of the community engagement, you also saw that in the community engagement. That people were looking for us not to sell names. So talking about community engagement, we had a survey available on Engage Milwaukie for approximately a month, November 4th through December 1st. We had 82 people who completed the survey. 331 were aware of it, so they visited the survey and chose not to complete it. 65% of the 82 surveys felt satisfied with proposed naming categories. Staff did have an opportunity to meet with tribal staff from the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. We thank our city recorder, Scott, for the introduction there. So we had a really good informal discussion with their staff. I should say that their staff has advised on policies throughout the region. They have a great deal of experience with this, and they did provide a lot of really great feedback. I think if we were doing things differently, we might have spoken with them
Earlier.
earlier. But the feedback that we received from the Grand Ronde was to avoid situations where we are leaving it up to the public to make a decision or council to make a decision when it's one name versus another or a small group of names versus another. And this comes from experience that they saw in another municipality where the where an indigenous name came up against another name of a veteran, and the resulting public discourse over that naming right wound up being rather a difficult one. And so the advice of the Grand Ronde is to make sure that we don't wind up with a policy that winds up pitting one name versus another to avoid any sort of one culture versus another sort of situation. Since our policy takes suggestions from the community at first and leaves it up to a subcommittee to make those decisions and recommendations, that's not something that we have to worry about. More importantly, the Grand Ronde did offer to gift us their experience. Should people make suggestions that we come up with a name that recognizes the indigenous community, if there is any translation or interpretive services or any research that they're able to provide, the Grand Ronde offered those services to us. Also, on the direction of council back in October, we specifically asked our community engagement about the impact of fundraising. We'll get into the results of those questions a little bit deeper in further slides, but we wanted to make sure that we reached out individually to the NCPRD, to the Friends of the Leding Library, the Leding Library Board, and then our local foundations. That includes the Library Foundation, Parks Foundation, Police Foundation, Rotary, and Elks. And they were all invited to take the survey, and also if they had comments that they wanted to share directly with staff, they could reach out to us and talk with us. No one responded to us directly. So we tried to do our homework on that, and we're hopeful that some of their folks did participate in the community survey.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed when I read that in your staff report. I did talk to a couple of individuals that I, encouraged to look at the policies, and I don't know if they actually submitted the surveys or not, but they did assure me they had looked at the policies and they were comfortable with them. So.
Thank you for that additional advocacy, Mayor Beatty. Sometimes it takes rounding them up. Most of all, we reached out and let them know the opportunity was available.
Yeah.
And then I do want to add just about the Engagement Milwaukee survey that according to our community engagement coordinator, Jason Wax, said, considering how dense our document and our survey was with materials that I believe we had, was 82 responses taken in completing the survey, that was pretty significant, so.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's pretty good. And it was, like you noted, a fairly short time online as well. So
Agreed.
That's pretty good.
Okay, I think we're ready to kind of dive into and transition to some of the Engage Milwaukee results. We pulled specific parts from the engagement survey, and some of the images are there, the charts, but you should have all the full document into your packet. And just to start us off with some of the renaming justifications, at the request of ESC, they wanted us to add language that provides greater clarity for renaming justification to include A, change of function, ownership, or structure, B, outdated or misalignment identity, and C, cultural or ethical concerns. And based on the community survey and the image there, we see all three considerations were voted pretty split evenly. And were asked to select if none or all that should have applied for renaming was the question. So with that, when the committee discussed, they decided to add all three. Then for the second change on the slide, we have a recommendation around future naming subcommittees. So council directed staff to add also representation or representatives from the library board in addition to the equity steering committee and our parks and recreation board to serve on the subcommittee. And they also, and the subcommittee agreed and asked that at least one or two members be added to the subcommittee to just increase requirements for quorum and to meet quorum and to aspire to greater discussion. So I think we were at minimum quorum with it being three, but if additional members are interested, it can be more. Okay.
And just to add on to that, we would still have just one naming subcommittee. We wouldn't recreate that over and over again. So we did take that direction. The only change is that we felt that just three people would be too difficult to hit quorum and wouldn't allow for enough diversity in ideas in the committee. So one or two, a minimum of three, one to each board. Okay, so there weren't a whole lot of slam dunks in this community engagement, but we've come to two of them. The first one is honorary street naming. So this is something that the subcommittee talked about. We said, hey, some cities do this. We asked you council, and then we asked the community, and the community was quite clear. Yeah, we don't need a honorary street naming policy. The subcommittee agreed, and so we've struck that from the policy. The impact on fundraising. So when looking at fundraising, the community felt that there would only be moderate impacts to fundraising. And as we've talked about earlier, the subcommittee, ESC, and PARB felt that we needed to avoid situations where we were naming or selling naming rights. And so based on the feedback from the community, we left the policies the same in terms of its requirements for significant donations.
And then just to add to, I think with the image and the chart we have there for the honorary street naming, I feel like this is the most clearest result that we got from the survey of like, it's not important, at least not right now. So that's the image that we have up there. Yeah. Okay. For naming after an outstanding individual, and I do believe this one is our last updated change based off the survey. Council directed staff to extend the category to include people who've made impact at the global level as well. I think in the language we just had stopping at national, so the subcommittee agreed to add world history as well. Then the council also directed staff to condense language of an outstanding individual by adopting the first bullet point that's here demonstrated in the green, in the graph as the green color, where it states the person volunteered and gave extraordinary help or care to individuals, families, or groups, or the support to the community, and then to remove the remainder of the bulletin points to reduce the text. Excuse me, and this included removing B, the person who risked their life to save or protect others, and C, the person demonstrated a commitment to equity, inclusion, and justice. Meanwhile, when we had the community survey, it demonstrated a mixed results that we see here on the screen, where the top three responses were so close together, and about 25% of them selected just none of the above. So after discussion about the results for the subcommittee, they still felt it was important to have some kind of language that calls out special consideration for local history and those who have been historically marginalized. So that's written within the policy in there as well.
So we have just two bullet points left of this year-long process. And I guess the question is, are we ready to adopt and present our resolution, or council, do you have questions or feedback for us?
So questions? comments? Oh, wow. Okay. You look like
I
you
was
were
just
going
gonna
to
say, I
say something.
appreciate, took all the spaghetti of feedback that we gave you before and doodled up something good, so I appreciate it.
Do you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. This was a big job and a really important one. So thank you for taking it on and bringing this back. It's exciting.
Yeah, I agree. It was a big job and it's something the city really has needed to have done for many years. So it's great that you've, taken the bull by the horns. I guess I mean, I get, we don't want to sell naming rights and we don't want to have corporate logos on our park. I guess I do still worry that this disincentivizes some donations. Some of the larger donations. I mean, the naming policy. I mean, the memorials policy. I think is solid, but in terms of I guess I feel like it will make. I mean, that's part of why I guess I was disappointed that more fundraisers didn't. People who do fundraising didn't weigh in. But I guess I feel like there's a disincentive here. But I mean, I guess we'll find out, right? We'll start with this, and if we run into that, we can revisit the policy, right?
And I would add too, with policy creation, this is never the end. We'll definitely have a timeline of after we apply it, we'll really see what's working, not working, and then update the policy as needed in the future.
Counselor?
I think it actually levels the playing field because somebody's monetary value versus somebody's sweat equity, for example, for what they, that's how you kind of level it out is just because you gave a bunch of money. What about somebody who spent so much of their time?
Yeah.
So I do feel like it does level that part out. But yeah, let's wait and see if that becomes an issue or not.
Yeah. Thank you for calling that out.
Other comments? All right, well, if not, how do we need? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the resolution adopting policy and procedures for naming assets and facilities.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution adopting policy and procedures for naming assets and facilities. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. None heard. It passes unanimously. Thank you, guys. That was great.
Thank you, City Council. So we will take these next steps. We will put together a subcommittee of no more than 6 people. And I believe it is still the direction that we've been working with over the past few years to work on providing definitive names for Bowman Bray and Belfour Parks.
Are those the only ones we need to?
Those are the only two that I am aware of that we've discussed over the last few years about renaming, but there is a process for which the community can make suggestions to rename something, in which case it would be up to you, Mayor, to decide to open those up.
And the Scott Park is deed restricted.
Scott Park is deed restricted and the policy is explicit that while we don't want to get into situations where we're necessarily writing deed restrictions or purchase agreements, where we guarantee naming rights, we do want to honor the decisions of the past. So unless someone can come up with a good reason why that name shouldn't be Scott Park, it shouldn't honor Richard and Hannah Scott, then it should remain. The deed restriction on Scott Park does state that if it's not used, if the land is not used as a recreational space, that does need to go back to the fairs.
But it doesn't condition that on keeping the name. It just conditions it on
It
the
does.
use.
It does.
It does keep the name. Okay. Okay. I will just flag. It's not ripe at this point, so it's not a thing for this first committee. But I do think at whatever point we get rid of the dam and we have a new green space, I would be interested in revisiting the Kronberg name. I would not want to see that attached to, anyway, that's a discussion for another day, but I just wanted to sort of, as the council president likes to say, lay down a marker. So, okay. Well, thank you guys. And that gets us to council reports, I believe. All right, who wants to start? Anybody get a council report? I mean, we haven't had a lot of meetings over the holidays, but you may have things to report on.
Mayor, I was just thinking that perhaps Emma's watching this meeting. She's a maniac. I know you're out there. And so, might propose, yeah, exactly. Maybe we should propose filibuster so that Joseph's first, acting city manager meeting goes longer than an hour.
Well, and for people out there in the community, we should say Emma is the mother of a new baby girl who was born early this morning. Named Georgiana, or Georgina. Georgie, and mother and baby are doing well.
You could consider dedicating this meeting to, is that what you were saying?
Well,
To Georgina?
only
step-
Emma's baby would wait until council Tuesday to be born.
It's true. Emma was ready.
I would like to propose that we submit the naming of the child to the naming.
Thanks, committee. Oh,
Staff just have one item for council if there's no reports.
okay.
We had a camp meeting yesterday, actually, first one of the new year. I just kind of went over again the parameters for our community needs assessment that's going to be happening this year. Trying to aim for at least getting 1,000 participants for that. We are also working, I remember when I first got on CAB, we were discussing some sort of a stipend to be able to pay people who attend the meetings, since it is, CAB is, all about the war on poverty, and a lot of the people that attend those meetings are people from income restrained populations. So we're able to find out that we can't give a stipend, but we can pay for gas inflation. We just have to have each member fill out like a vendor packet with the county. So it's gonna take some time, but it's good because at least now people that have to use their own vehicle to do this volunteer work or already struggling can at least get their travel expenses covered. We are also looking at meeting with the Oregon Food Bank as well as the Clackamas Service Center to kind of get an idea of where they're at inventory wise, kind of see what the need is, where the need is, just so we can get a better idea where we sit, considering all the SNAP benefits. The interesting thing is statistically, when the state jumped in when those SNAP benefits were cut off, they were providing some of the meals, and the county told us to mention the ratio of the cost. And like, this is how significant SNAP is. For every one meal that the county provides from the state's money, that's 9 meals that SNAP provides. Like, that's how significant SNAP is. For every one meal the county will provide out of its own money, that's 9 meals that SNAP provides. That's the equivalent to 9 meals that SNAP provides. So that's just how significant the SNAP money is. And yeah, we're hoping to get some more information on that, and in turn, be able to do some food drives locally throughout the county. So that's what I got for reports. I did want to talk about also, I know we kind of beat this thing to hell with with the tree code. And I guess maybe what I would like to find out is, with that tree on Stanley, with the new changes we made, what that cost would have been to that developer. Because on Stanley, going north towards Johnson Creek, there's a lot that has 2 properties or 2 houses being developed on it. There is a massive tree in front of one of the units. I mean, this thing is it's got to be at least 30 feet tall. Huge trunk. They hadn't done anything with it, so I was like, oh, I wonder if they're going to keep this tree. Because every time I drive by, they're building around it, but the branches, it's like right in front of the house. And I found out that actually that tree is set for removal, and it is a massive tree. And I know we just implemented the new rules. So I'm curious to know a tree like that, what the cost would
Actually,
be.
the new rules are coming next meeting, aren't they?
We're not implement, I mean, that we just discussed the new changing. them. So we haven't implemented it, so they're gonna go off of the old rules. But I'm curious to know with the new implementation that we're gonna have, what that amount is. And if it's not significant, then maybe we should, because we're gonna hit a crossroads. We've talked about this too with our tree code and our excuse me, with development and our tree canopy. So either one thing's gonna have to give, either we're gonna have to severely revise that goal is, because as the pace right now, we will not hit 40% tree canopy. There's no way. Too many trees are getting cut down. So we're gonna have to figure out what do we value? Do we value more of our trees, or do we value market rate housing that really people can't afford, right? So maybe there's a limit to how big of a tree you can cut down, period. Maybe a 30-foot tree with a 3+ person radius trunk is too big to cut down. And, instead of building those 2 units, which are each probably about 800 square feet and are gonna go for 450, which is gonna be 900,000 that the developer's gonna make, maybe they build one house at 1,600 square feet that goes for 500, 600, right? So I just, again, I'm curious to know what that price tag would have been with the changes that we just made that haven't been implemented yet. But even our residents have mentioned and emailed us about bigger trees. Like, we're not talking about 10-footers and 15-footers. I mean, we're talking about trees that have been around for at least 100 years. So what's the limit? If there's no limit to what the developer will pay, and we have yet to see that, what is our limit as to how big of a tree you can cut down? Because I know we value that. I'm sure we value, and I'm sure we value trees and we value affordable housing, not just market rate housing. I know a lot of people that value that too much. But again, we've been talking about pushback. We've been talking to constituents about how we can get around the states, their overreach in the zoning, and maybe putting a limit on how big of a tree you can cut down is a way to get them to not build so much so fast, or maybe think outside the box, or maybe even incentivize them to actually build smaller and cheaper, since they can't build anything else on there. Because talking to city manager Brent Julio the other day, based on their design, because they're building those 2 units, they couldn't change it because they would have had to cut down 2 trees in the back. But again, it's because they're building 2 units to maximize the profit. So there's a little bit of a tug of war, but it also comes down to our value. I understand the need for market rate, but I don't value it, especially when the majority of our people can afford it. But I do value our trees, I do value our canopy. And if anybody is going to cut a tree that size down to build housing, let it be a nonprofit who's going to build housing that somebody can actually afford. So there's my 2 cents. I know we've gone through this tree code, but again, it's more of a new thing, and it's probably going to have to go through a few refinements, because a lot of these issues, a lot of these crises that we're dealing with today are policy decisions.
Mayor, if I can just on Councilor Body, I'm happy to look into what the delta would be between the former tree code and the soon to be adopted tree code. It looks like it is on your next meeting to adopt, or you can add that to the conversation that occurs next time. I will say it also sounds like a larger conversation between development goals and tree code goals or tree canopy goals, so to speak. And I think we've kind of been living in that tension for a couple of years now, right? We kind of want all the things, which is 40% tree canopy and lots of density and affordable housing, and those are starting to compete with each other to a certain degree. So I don't know if there's a perfect answer, but I think it's definitely a big conversation in values where this council sits at any one time.
Well, I frankly don't remember I remember that we had, the proposal was a bigger number for certain size trees. I don't remember if we I don't remember if we talked about, different rules for affordable and market rate. But I mean, that does seem to me something maybe that should be on the table, right? I mean, we didn't, in our affordable housing incentives, we gave a lot of, there's very little, green space left on some of those lots. And so we took away some of the potential for trees. But, But certainly in terms of existing trees, it seems like we might be able to have different costs for market rate. I mean, that may be a place where we think about incentives. Council President?
I was getting weeds in the code, but no, we can save that for another day.
Well, yeah, it's on in 2 weeks, so you'll get to get in the weeds. Okay, I have a couple things. One is TriMet. Sent you guys all an email today about the TriMet cuts that are proposed for Milwaukie. They're proposed for everywhere. I'm not at all suggesting that Milwaukie is being disproportionately impacted, but everywhere is going to be impacted. But didn't know whether TriMet's scheduled to come talk to us in beginning of March. But in terms of getting word out to residents and there are some public meetings and there's some online surveys and things like that. Is there something we want to be doing? Is there something we want to be asking staff to do, et cetera?
Curious if that's a better question after the January 14th or 15th TriMet.
Oh, the workshop, the online
Because
workshop.
that's going to go over what all the cuts are and how that's going to affect. So maybe it's a better discussion to have after that. I signed up for the 14th.
Oh, did you?
The noon one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that might be a better time after that start.
I guess I just worry that I think a lot of the public comment is going to wind up at the end of the month. So, but anyway, yeah.
I think that spreading the word on Engage or in different areas where we can is helpful. In some ways, TriMet is such a bind after the rigmarole of this last year in transportation funding. I feel really bad for an agency that provides such an essential service. I was thinking, okay, what are some creative things that we could do to try and help TriMet ridership or do different things? So, maybe we try and organize a group ride on the first farmers market where we go down the 33 line, take it into downtown, or maybe we try and do some, let's all head into downtown Portland and go shop off the orange line, or I don't know what it is, but I'd love for us to think of maybe there's some community that we want to do to encourage people to get to know the bus lines around them, so we can focus on some of the positive things out about transit, and hopefully prevent student group people don't use the service that we have.
Another topic I wanted to bring up, very crucial one, is I think we need to bring back pizza once a month at our meetings. You know, we said when we disbanded it that we would commit to going in and eating dinner together once, and we don't do it. So I don't know. I mean, obviously the pizza isn't across the street anymore, but pizza's deliverable. It's not like staff would have to go get it. It could be delivered to us. What do people think?
I love the idea, and even if we put the pizza out there and we can all sit around, if there's concerns about just being our pizza and other people's pizza, trying to think about different ways that we can do it. But I like eating meals together. I also think that the later we go, the harder it is to not have a full meal. Some of these days can be hard to have a full meal.
Yeah. Can we try like or something?
Well, I'm okay with this. My only concern was just what Councilman Kutzervati brought up, is that I want to keep this simple. Okay, and, so if it devolves into, well, while you're going over there, would you stop at New Citizens and pick me up a blah, 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 and, I don't like Pepsi, so won't Coke, or, I just don't want it to get too complicated, okay? It's just pizza.
Well, and Scott will remember that it did get pretty complicated at one point. We were getting, from the old, painted lady, we were getting sandwiches and stuff, and everybody had a different order, and everybody, it got very complicated. That's why I feel like pizza is the, yeah. Yeah. even though, it would be nice, in theory, it would be great to give the business to different businesses around town. I hear you on that, but there aren't too many that lend themselves to not having to be individual districts and orders. And
This thing opens next door. Is anybody gonna still want pizza?
Oh, well,
We'll process it. Unless they got a pizza spot down. I'm hearing a consensus to bring this back. Is there interest in which meeting of the month it is? First week, third week,
I don't,
6th, 7th?
does anybody?
Want to get in the weeds on this one?
I think we should hear your voice.
We'll start it.
And then, the other thing I wanted to bring up, and I think this is probably just, again, laying a marker for people to think about is, but it's something I've been having a fair number of conversations about, which is, as I think I've given you in some of the reporting on the changes coming to the SHS program, it looks like there's going to be a push, and it looks like there's going to be a push for Multnomah County to get a higher portion of the income than they currently get. And that Washington County and Clackamas County may lose income. I fully expect some pushback on that from both of those counties. It strikes me that it is hard for us to push back on that when we don't have a shelter in Clackamas County. And I've met with Brandy Johnson and I've talked with other mayors and, yes, the Project Turnkey site that the county commission unfortunately didn't purchase when they had a great opportunity. They do rent 40 beds there. They do have 40 rooms there. But really, Chief Burdick told me, our officers drive people into Portland because that's where the shelters are, So it's hard for me to think about, supporting Clackamas County and pushing back on reallocation of funds when we don't have shelter in Clackamas County. And so I want to think about, should we be calling for something more from Clackamas County out of our SHS money? So again, I don't expect to hash that through tonight, but I just wanted to put it out there as something for people to think about. Okay. And yes, Mr. Stoffer had something for us.
Yep, just wanted to give council a quick opportunity. A week from today, we posted notice council will be doing a site visit at the Clackamas Service Center over in the unincorporated Clackamas area, and wanted to give council an opportunity while you're together to talk if you want to carpool, how you're going to work that. There might be 2 Clackamas Service Center sites involved in the tour, so just kind of keep that in mind. You might be going from their main facility to a warehouse in the same area, but I'm not sure if it's walkable. And then you also have an executive session at 5:15 here. So just wanted to give the floor to council in case you guys want to coordinate that. If not, it's not terribly far away, but to council.
I mean, I'm happy to carpool. I'm happy to drive and give people rides. Whatever you want to do.
I'll be down in Salem for Ledge Days, so I'll miss this one, but I'll be there at 5:30.
5:15.
Maybe I'll pull a coaster body.
I can't pull that off.
They've got to be there at 2 o'clock.
Not earlier. I mean, 1:40, 1:30. I mean, we can be at 1:30 just to be safe. Yeah. We're gonna just meet here. Yeah. Okay. We can just sort it out. Okay. 1:30. And I will say our 5:15 meeting is executive session. And just as a reminder, Chief Burdick gave us all binders, which I came across recently, and I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta read that binder. So pull out your binders. And, yeah. We're probably supposed to return them because they're executive session materials. Yeah. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, nothing else. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard? We are adjourned.